Don't be mad that the Rams aren't spending because there's not a whole lot to spend on. This is RamView.
Out there, let's blow them off the line of scrimmage.
Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the March 20th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since '92. If you're injured in an auto accident, you need help, you got questions, call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, as we said, they've been fighting for you since '92. And by Temple City Auto Repair, having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. I'm seeing all these links about the Rams not spending any money, and they're in the process of getting rid of some really good players just to save money, okay? So they're not going to go out and sign some really average ones just so they can spend that money again, right? You had to know this was coming, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay. I think if the offensive line stays healthy, they're going to be okay. I think the receiving room is fine if everyone stays healthy. I think there's plenty to go around here right now, and they pick up some pieces in the draft on the offensive side. They are going to need right now. They don't have a long snapper, a punter, and a kicker, so they're going to need some help there. But by and large, what do you want them to spend it on? Who's out there on the edge that you want? Right? Have you taken a look to see what's out there? And what the Rams, between what they can afford, what fits what they're doing in 2023, and who you would really want, right? Jadeveon Clowney, he's still out there. He's out there every year. 1 year, $8 million is his projected. Melvin Ingram, right? 1 year, $4 million is projected. Justin Houston, who's been around since the days of Sam Houston, right? 1.4. These are projected for these guys. Do you really want to go out and sign these guys? You want an off-ball linebacker? You want a Levante David? Well, his projected price is 2 years, $11 million. At 2 years, $11 million, I'd have kept Bobby Wagner. There's not a whole lot out there right now, and the stuff that's already gone didn't fit the Rams' budget. OBJ, really? Are we being realistic? Especially when we see what the Rams are doing in 2023. Also, another thing that's really interesting when you think about free agency and everything that's taking place is the entire league has known since February that Bobby Wagner was going to be put out on the street. And when free agency started, the Bears and other teams, there was a flurry, a rush of signing a lot of off-ball linebackers. And nobody waiting around for Bobby Wagner, the number one ranked off-ball linebacker in the league, according to PFF last year. And so it is interesting to see where Wagner lands and for how much. And if that's the case, maybe he comes back to the Rams. No one is saying this. I'm just spitballing. Maybe he comes back to the Rams at a better price. I could see maybe him going back to Seattle, but we'll see. But yeah, it's interesting that teams knew Bobby Wagner was going to be out there, and instead they committed some serious bucks to some off-ball linebackers, and it's interesting. Personally, for the Rams right now, I don't want to see Troy Hill come back. I'm good with Riley Dixon. The guy at punter, the guy I really want to see the Rams bring back is Brandon Powell. And finding a competent kick and punt returner after Pharaoh Cooper moved on was no walk in the park, right? I mean, we know what the Rams were doing after Pharaoh Cooper. And they didn't find anybody until they found Brandon Powell. And then you found out Brandon Powell can play some offense and really contribute. I remember hearing about this early last summer that McVay was giving Powell some looks on the offense. And I'm thinking, really, how are they going to find spots for him? I'm glad they found some spots for him. That guy can play. It would be nice to see him come back in that utility role because I think he does a great job. I do want Brandon Powell back. And so now, basically, as we look at it, where are the Rams going to be? This is what it is. Maybe Brandon Powell. And honestly, what do you want them going after out there? So it's and there's all kinds of mock drafts out there, and some of them are really good. I got one from Steve Ramirez. Former sports writer, a good friend of mine. I'm going to share his here in a little bit. But some of the mock drafts you're seeing, they're just not thinking. When you see the Rams taking a guard or a center at number 36, you're expecting the Rams, or giving an indication the Rams are going to do something they've never done in the less Snead era, let alone the mixed Sneed era with Sean McVay. And so I thought it would be interesting to break down the highest picks by position overall, the highest picks overall by position. Now, on some of these, when you get into Aaron Donald or Greg Robinson or Tavon Austin during the Sneed era, these were high draft picks, right? These were high picks, and that's a little bit different than going into the second round and having to really consider carefully what you're going to take. And so I'm going to start off with the wide receivers here, and I thought this was really interesting. Tavon Austin, of course, was taken 8th overall in 2013, but just a couple seasons later, Brian Quick was taken 33rd overall. The Rams took Brian Quick 33rd overall in 2013? They took him. I think it was 20. No, I don't think it was 2013. I'll have to check. And that was high. That was high for the Rams. Brian Quick was a specimen to look at him. Yeah, he just had manos de piedra. He had hands of stone. And yeah, I don't think he's making his living playing football anymore. Tutu Atwell and Van Jefferson were drafted back-to-back years in 2020 and 2021, both 57 overall. Cooper Kupp was 69th overall in 2017. And Stedman Bailey, remember Stedman Bailey and Chris Givens? They were drafted inside the top 100. And so that shows you Brian Quick was taken in the same draft as Chris Givens. I think it was 2012. You that Snead, they will take receivers in that top 100. Todd Gurley's the outlier here, right? 10th overall in 2015. No one drafts running backs. Other running backs, significant running backs drafted in the top 100 in Les Snead's era are Cam Akers at 52 overall, Isaiah Peed, remember him in 2012, 50th overall, Darrell Henderson, 70th overall, and Trey Mason. Remember Trey Mason had a nice 2014, then vanished in 2015. It was pretty much done with him when Gurley came, and then he had some mental health issues. I think he ended up briefly in Canada. But the Rams, outside of the Todd Gurley being overall, the Rams have not drafted a running back inside the top 50 in the Snead era. Centers, guards, tackles. Okay, let's look what the Rams do there. The Rams have only drafted 2 centers in the whole in this whole era from 2012 forward, and that was Brian Allen. He was taken at 111 overall. So when I see mock drafts that show the Rams taking a center, is it mock or whoever, at 36, could happen, but it's not something the Rams have ever done before. Jamon Brown at guard is the highest guard taken at 72 overall. Logan Bruss would be the next one at 104, right, overall last year. Jamon Brown played for the Rams from 2015 through, I think, the first half of the 2018 season before he was released. He had some issues. He hasn't played in the NFL in about 3 years. Now, Greg Robinson, of course, that was a whiff. He was 2nd overall in 2014, so he's an outlier. But since then, the Rams have drafted Havenstein, 57th overall in 2015, Noteboom, 89th overall in 2018, and forgive me for using some foul language here, Bobby Evans, number 97 overall in 2019. And so even at tackle, throw out the Greg Robinson draft, which was an outlier. Snead and McVay, they will not draft anybody. They have not drafted a tackle higher than 57. So guard, center, tackles, well, you better be pretty special to be taken at number 36 this year. You better be really, really special. Tight ends, the highest drafted tight end is Gerald Everett, second round in 2017. He was drafted 44th overall. Kind of fits where the Rams are right now at 36, needing a tight end. Bryson Hopkins and Tyler Higbee were both drafted after the first 100. I think Higbee's around 111. I think Hopkins is around 134. But the Rams showed there a little bit that they'll take a tight end. But then again, Higbee's been so consistent at tight end, they haven't really had to look at a tight end for a few years. And Everett was good while he was with the Rams. Quarterback, Goff was the outlier. Sean Mannion was taken 89th overall in 2015. And the Rams haven't taken a quarterback since, right? I feel like they felt like they had their quarterback in Goff, felt like they had their quarterback in Stafford, and they really have not been looking to have that guy that they needed to develop. They're just looking to kind of fill the space, and it bit them last year because John Wolford obviously wasn't ready. Aaron Donald, Mike Brockers at defensive tackle. Michael Brockers was 14th overall in 2012. Aaron Donald was 13th overall in 2014. And those are the only real defensive tackles the Rams have drafted anywhere in the top 100. Defensive end, edge, it's kind of loose now because of what defense you play. But traditional defensive end would probably be John Franklin Myers, who's with the Jets, or has been with the Jets. I don't know if he's a free agent or not. Rams gave up on him pretty quick. They only drafted him at 135 overall. And an actual edge linebacker, Terrell Lewis, who they just released, he's the highest pick they ever did at that position at 84 overall. Off-ball linebackers, Alec Ogletree, 30th overall in 2013, first-round pick. But since then, Ernest Jones at 103. And it just shows where the Rams have gotten play and value. Remember, they were running Troy Reeder and Micah Kaiser out there, right? They were running Kenny Young out there before they brought in Bobby Wagner. So they haven't been drafting these guys. The one they did take is the one that seems to have panned out, Ernest Jones, at 103 overall in 2021. At corner, the Rams have shown they will take some players. Janoris Jenkins was 39th overall in 2012. Trumaine Johnson, remember Trumaine Johnson? 65th overall in 2012. And they did draft David Long at 79th overall in 2019, although these things have not worked out. If you remember, we'll talk about LaMarcus Joyner here in a minute, who played some slot corner for the team. You know, they made the deal for Marcus Peters. They made the deal for Aqib Talib. They made the deal for Jalen Ramsey, right? The Rams developed Troy Hill. And they went long on some of these guys. I think they even franchise tagged Trumaine Johnson. But it'll be interesting. I think the Rams could pull the trigger definitely in this draft in those top three picks, 36, 69, 77 overall for a corner. That one makes sense. At safety, the Rams did draft LaMarcus Joyner in 2014 at 41 overall, but he was a real hybrid safety, slot corner. He's done a lot of things in the NFL, even some time at outside linebacker. And he just finished up with the Jets. He had 3 picks last year. It'll be interesting to see where he lands this season, if he's still going to play. Taylor Rapp, the one true safety, the Rams drafted high. He was 61st overall in 2019. TJ McDonald was 71 overall in 2013. And John Johnson was 91st overall in 2017. And John Johnson, TJ McDonald, Taylor Rapp were never given second contracts. LaMarcus Joyner was tagged, and then he moved on to the Raiders and then eventually to the Jets. So it gives you an idea that if you're thinking the Rams are going to draft an offensive lineman at 36, I'd think again. The Rams have shown that centers and guards, they're not going to draft them in the first 100. They will draft maybe a tackle in the first 100, but not a center or a guard. I think the Rams are so desperate for an edge right now that you'll probably see an edge at 36. You don't see off-ball linebackers. You just don't see off-ball linebackers taken inside the top 100. So I'm thinking edge, I'm thinking corner, and right now I'm thinking tight end. These are the positions the Rams likely are to fulfill at 36, 69, and 77. Just something to keep an eye on. Okay, let's get to the commercial. I am Joe Terosian, and I do FanView. I was a sports writer for 21 years, and I worked at various places. I was one of the founding members of Mid-Valley Sports. Those guys cover the NFL now. I left. They go to the NFL, but I get to do RamView, so I'm happy. I also write books. I do RamView, and I write books to supplement my income. And I've written a couple high school football novels, Tangent Dreams, Temple City Company of the Ages. Gotten good reviews, picked up some nice reviews on those, some nice sales. But you can check those out on Amazon, along with some other fiction I've written. I've written some dystopian Christian fiction, and you can check those out there. I appreciate the support. If you buy it, read it. Thank you. If you buy it, read it, leave a great review. Really, thank you. And I do all that because my day job is I pastor a small church in Burbank. I've been a Nazarene minister for 34 years, ordained elder. You might see me quite a bit on Facebook and here on YouTube. I do a lot of preaching online as well as in person at my church. And you can check that out at Burbank Faith Virtual right here on YouTube, as well as Burbank Faith Virtual on Facebook and online and other places, as well as in person in Burbank. Okay, I got the commercial in. We got the commercial in, and that was a Stone Groove. Okay, so I want to do one last ad on that 2019 draft. That 2019 draft was Taylor Rapp, Darrell Henderson, David Long, warning, Bobby Evans, Greg Gaines, David Edwards, Nick Scott, and Dakota Allen. So what's really interesting about that draft is Rapp's leaving, Henderson's gone, Long's going, Bobby Evans is gone, Greg Gaines just signed, Nick Scott just signed, David Edwards is a free agent, right? And Dakota Allen hung around, I think, practice squad for a year, went to Jacksonville, Las Vegas. He was one of those last chance you guys. So he was always interesting. I think he was doing some special team work with Cincy recently. So maybe he's still picking up a paycheck. That's really good for him. But Taylor Rapp, Darrell Henderson, and David Long were the top three picks. Okay. 61, 70, and 79 overall. Taylor Rapp got injured late in the Super Bowl season in 2021. He only played 27 snaps in the Super Bowl. That was basically Nick Scott and Eric Weddle. Remember, Eric Weddle filled in there, and then Rapp did some spot duty there. Darrell Henderson made a couple plays in that Super Bowl, made a really nice catch. Good contributor as Cam Akers was coming back from the Achilles injury. You know, David Long never really saw much on the field. His first 2 years started seeing time, but yeah, it wasn't a really good experience for David Long. It never really caught fire for him. He did score a touchdown, I think, in the playoffs on the pick six. I think, wasn't he that got the pick six on Kyler Murray? Bobby Evans, we'll just put over here. Greg Gaines, David Edwards, and Nick Scott. And that's what's interesting is Rapp was so-so, Henderson was so-so, David Long was not really, Bobby Evans was a wash. But three key starters for the Rams in Super Bowl, was that Super Bowl 56? Three key starters, Greg Gaines, David Edwards, and Nick Scott. Greg Gaines drafted 134 overall, David Edwards 169 overall, Nick Scott 243 overall. There's some value in the back of the draft, and the Rams found a way to make that work, and they'll be getting compensatory picks for Gaines and Scott, and I don't know about Edwards. Edwards is really up in the air because the concussions. He didn't have a good year last year, didn't play a whole lot. He's really in limbo for his career. And Darrell Henderson's career looks like it's about over. David Long, we don't know who the suitors are going to be for David Long. And Taylor Rapp's going to sign somewhere. But it is interesting that the guys that were the main contributors on out of that draft in 2019 for the Super Bowl were Greg Gaines, David Edwards, and Nick Scott. 4th round, 5th round, and 7th round. So when somebody says, those compensatory picks are just 6th rounders or 7th rounders, Nick Scott was a 7th rounder, right? They picked up a 5th rounder, a couple of 5th rounders after last year's free agent period. Well, a 5th rounder is what David Edwards was. So you need to really look at the draft. In fact, to me, the most exciting part of the drafts NFL draft is day 2, day 3. You can keep day 1 in the red carpet approach, but day 2 and day 3 are the most exciting, most interesting parts because you're really getting those players that are going to fill out your roster around your stars. And you can find a lot of value at the bottom of the draft, okay? So a little bit of Rams history here as we hit the 20-minute mark. Happy birthday to former Rams outside linebacker Mike Wilcher. He turned 63 today. And free agent left guard David Edwards out of Wisconsin turns 26. We certainly wish the best for him. When he's healthy, you might want him, but I don't think the Rams are going to come back to terms with him. I think he's a free agent because I think the Rams have more depth than people think on their offensive line. But going back to Wilcher, this is an interesting one. This is one of my favorite things about doing RamView, and I hope I don't bore you too much, but I'm trusting that you're Ram fans. In October of 1981, the 49ers turned the corner. Remember? Everything was taking off, West Coast offense. The 49ers, after being bad for so long, everything was taking off for Bill Walsh, Joe Montana, Ronnie Lott, Dwight Hicks, Eric Wright. They were just all coming together, but they needed a pass rusher, right? And so Fred Dean had been in all kinds of contract squabbles with the Chargers, and so they made a deal to pick up the rights to Fred Dean. And part of that deal is for the Bolts, the Chargers, to swap first-round picks with Frisco in 1983. Now, this is going back to 81. So the deal is pushed forward. They'll swap picks in 83. And it's a bit convoluted, but how it works out is the Chargers end up with the 22nd overall pick and take cornerback Gil Byrd. Remember Gil Byrd? He wasn't a bad corner for the Chargers. He was in that show me your lightning bolt period, right? So not a bad deal. The 49ers ended up with 2 second-round picks, right? And those second-round picks were pick number 36 and pick number 49. With the 49th overall in the 83 draft, they took this dude out of Nebraska named Roger Craig. Does he sound familiar to you? Yeah, Roger Craig. Pretty much a beast on the field. And then they take the 36th overall along with a 4th-round pick that they acquired from the Broncos in the Steve DeBerg trade, which is 87th overall. So they sent to the Rams for the Rams 3rd overall. That pick, the 49ers take UCLA's Montgomery, a linebacker. Some UCLA fans might remember Blanchard Montgomery. He wasn't a bad linebacker, just coming off a Rose Bowl win. They also acquire Cody Jones, who I don't think ever plays it down for the 49ers. He ends up retiring. And the Rams also passed on to the 49ers because they had just drafted Eric Dickerson. They passed on Wendell Tyler, who provides them this complement to Roger Craig in the backfield. And within 2 years in 1984, Wendell Tyler runs for 1,100 yards, and the 49ers win the Super Bowl. There we go. And with that number 36th overall pick, the Rams draft Mike Wilcher, who turns 63 today. And it's ironic because at the number 36 spot is where the Rams will be drafting this year. Wilcher, in his time with the Rams, wearing number 54, is a model of consistency. He's out of North Carolina. He plays the right outside linebacker. George Andrews goes down in 84, and Wilcher steps in, and he's there for the next 7-8 years, right? And it's a different era, right? It's a different era. Wilcher registers 38 sacks, and he has a big year in 85, registers 12 and a half. And right around that time, if you remember, Kevin Long. Oh my gosh, his name slipped my mind. Yeah, Kevin, the Hall of Famer. Yeah, Kevin Green rises and becomes the Rams' number 1 zip to the quarterback. But Wilcher is an excellent outside linebacker. And so I just thought it was ironic that today's his birthday. He turned 63. I looked at it. He was the Rams' 36th overall pick in the draft in 1983, and that's where the Rams draft this year at number 36. Wilcher, by the way, well, not Wilcher, the number 87 pick the Rams took, they actually used it to draft Chuck Nelson out of Washington, and he kicked for the Rams until Mike Lansford returned from an injury, and then Nelson moved on to Buffalo and then spent 3 seasons with Minnesota. So he worked out a nice career there. But I'm a big fan. And what I was going to say about Wilcher, if the Rams could find a Mike Wilcher at number 36 this year, I'd be really, really happy, right? Okay, Rams in the news. Taylor Rapp, I don't have any new news on him. I haven't seen anything. Said he was visiting New England in Cincy. Interesting, Nick Scott got a contract before Taylor Rapp, but I think maybe Nick Scott was going for a little less dough. A'Shawn Robinson over the weekend was talking to the Giants. Traven Howard appeared in a blip there on Twitter. I saw a blip there that Traven Howard was visiting the Cowboys. If Traven Howard can stay healthy, it's really a case of bad timing with his injuries. His injuries really cost him a much bigger exposure with the Rams. Bummer to see him move on, but you hope it all works out. Former Rams Nick Scott signed a 3-year, 12-rock deal with Cincinnati. Greg Gaines signed with Tampa Bay. I couldn't find the contract details, but that one stings a little bit because you really like Greg Gaines, and I preferred him to A'Shawn Robinson, but I don't think A'Shawn Robinson's coming back either. And we know, I love going back and seeing where recent Rams are at. Robert Woods is in Houston. Ogba Okoronkwo signed a 3-19 deal, 3 years, 19 rocks with Cleveland. Case Keenum's in Houston. Matt Orzech, the long snappers in Green Bay for 3 years. The Bolts re-signed Morgan Fox. And the Colts took Samson Ebukam, 3 years, 27 mil. And they also signed Matt Gay, 4 years, 22.5, the second largest deal a kicker has ever gotten. And, of course, Baker Mayfield made the move to not better his career and went to Tampa Bay to sign a 1 year, $8.5 million deal there. Free agent quarterbacks on the market. This is why I believe the Rams in the top 100 at 69 or 77, or maybe they'll package some of their draft picks together and move up. These are the free agents on the market: Carson Wentz, Teddy Bridgewater, Matt Ryan, Trevor Siemian, Brian Hoyer. If the Rams were really playing to compete in 2023, I would say, hey, go grab a Carson Wentz. Go grab a Matt Ryan for cheap dough and league minimum money, and let them be your insurance policy for a game or two for Matthew Stafford. But the Rams aren't going to compete for a title in 22. They're going to compete for a wild card. They're going to play well. But to think of the Rams going long in terms of 2023 NFC Championship game, Super Bowl appearance, that's a bit of a stretch. Possible. McVay's a heck of a coach. But I'd rather see them draft a quarterback in the top 100 and develop a really good quarterback, not a 7th rounder. I don't want Clayton Tune. I don't want the kid from Fresno. I want somebody that's played. I want Hendon Hooker or Tanner McKee. So that's where that's at. NFL news, the Raiders signed tight end O.J. Howard, who Tampa Bay, Buffalo, played for the Texans last year. Really interesting when you consider the Texans, because O.J. Howard, the Texans didn't really want to bring him back. O.J. Howard was the 19th overall selection in the 2017 draft, right? Who's had a better career? O.J. Howard at 19th overall, or would you say Gerald Everett at 44 overall? I would say Gerald Everett has. And getting to the Texans, is the Texans signed, it's reported to have signed, Cowboys tight end Dalton Schultz to a 1 year, $9 million contract. So yeah, OJ, appreciate you this year. Why don't you move along to Las Vegas? We're going to bring in Dalton Schultz. So that tells you what the Texans are thinking. Also, really interesting. They bring in Schultz. They've made other moves, and they also extended Laramie Tunsil, their left tackle, the one they acquired from Miami for those draft picks all those years ago because they were making their run with D-Hop and Deshaun Watson. Well, Tunsil's still there. I think everyone forgot about him, but he was good enough to earn a $3 year, $75 million extension on his contract. So whoever comes in at quarterback, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, whoever comes in at quarterback is going to have that left side guarded. And he'll have a tight end to throw to, as we see the Texans making some really nice moves under DeMeco Ryans. They also signed Robert Woods, if you remember. So a lot of safety valves there for the next quarterback for Houston. Titans signed Sean Murphy-Bunting from the Buccaneers. Adam Thielen, the former Viking receiver, which people were talking foolishly about the Rams looking at him. I don't know why. He's signing a 3-year deal with the Panthers. C.J. Gardner-Johnson signed a 1 year, I think $8 million deal with the Lions. It's another gutting of the Eagles, but another commitment by the Lions between Cam Sutton and C.J. Gardner. They are really looking to upgrade themselves. The Lions are prepping for a run, and congratulations to Brad Holmes, former Ram front office guy. It's really working out for Brad Holmes there in Detroit. So you kind of wish them the best. And, there is part of me that does wish them for Jared Goff the best. Hey, as far as I'm concerned, as long as they lose to the Rams in the NFC final, they can win every game there is up to that point with the Lions. It's good to see. And then finally, the Cowboys in somewhat of a cap hell, couldn't keep Dalton Schultz. They've jettisoned Ezekiel Elliott. They made a deal, and they made a deal with the Texans. Texans get out from under the contract of Brandon Cooks. They acquire a 5th rounder and a 6th rounder, a 5th rounder in 23, 6th rounder next year in the 2024 draft. And so the Cowboys are going to throw Brandon Cooks out there with CeeDee Lamb, and we'll see what happens. I like Brandon Cooks, but I'm not in love with Brandon Cooks. It's really, really interesting to see how his career has played out. He's the Bobby Bonds of the NFL. And I guess I'm dating myself there, but if you're watching this and you've been around sports, you can remember how Bobby Bonds was traded so often. Latest mock draft. I think this one's the CBS Mock Draft. Literally came out this morning. Has the Panthers taking Bryce Young at number 1. C.J. Stroud going to Houston, so he'll have Robert Woods, Dalton Schultz, and Laramie Tunsil helping him out. Arizona's Will Anderson. That's the thing that we're always seeing. Will Anderson going to Arizona, the edge player out of Alabama. Indy, instead of Anthony Richardson, the previous 2 mock drafts I saw had Anthony Richardson going to Indy. Today's CBS mock draft has Kentucky's Will Levis, quarterback, going to Indy. Seattle taking Tyree Wilson, edge out of Texas Tech. It has Detroit taking Anthony Richardson at 6th overall. And given the moves the Lions are making, I don't see them grabbing a quarterback right now, right? You have Cam Sutton for a limited time. You have Gardner Johnson on a limited contract, a 1-year contract. I see them. They're going to make their move with Jared Goff, and I don't think they want to waste the 6th overall right now on Anthony Richardson. What do you think? Am I wrong on that? I would want to get Christian Gonzalez. I'd want to get another weapon. I'd want to get something else than a quarterback I have to wait 2 years to develop. CBS has 7th overall Jalen Carter, the troubled Georgia defensive lineman, who's had his charges taken care of, but he was horrible in his pro day. And man, bad company corrupts good character. And then he's out of shape at the most prime time in his life when he needs to be in shape. Well, sounds like a Raider already, right? He sounds like a Raider 1st rounder who gets released in summer of 2025. I mean, it's just bad mojo there. This mock draft has Christian Gonzalez going 8, the Oregon corner. He's the number 1 rated corner on all the draft boards, going to Atlanta at number 8. And then the Bears. This mock draft had the Bears taking at number 9, Ohio State wide receiver Jackson Smith Nigba. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I've heard so many different variations. But he's a frontline receiver. And the idea that they would draft him, they already have Darnell Mooney. They made the deal for DJ Moore. They have Chase Claypool. They just signed Robert Tonyan. They at the tight end spots. And then they're going to draft another receiver. Justin Fields some weapons. I don't know. I think that might be a but we'll see. We'll see. That's really interesting. But it's nice to see the Bears pivoting a little more to the offense, giving Justin Fields some help. Number 10 overall, Philly, taking Miles Murphy, defensive lineman, 6'5", 268, Clemson. And we'll leave the rest of the mock draft there. I want to share my friend Steve Ramirez's mock draft. Steve was a writer for the San Diego Tribune, still is. He did sports for, I think, 30 years there and covered UCLA football. Big Dodger fan, big UCLA fan, and big Ram fan. And so Steve tagged me, and he posted his mock draft on Sunday, or was it Saturday? I think it was Sunday. And this is it. Number 36, he has the Rams taking an edge. Felix Anudike-Uzomah out of Kansas State. There's just no way around when you do these mock drafts. I've done several. I just haven't posted them. You just can't get around not taking an edge, knowing where the Rams are at. At 69, Steve took tight end Sam Laporta, Iowa. And then at number 77, cornerback Garrett Williams, Syracuse. Now, that's interesting because a mock draft that just went up today showed the Rams at number 77 taking Garrett Williams at Syracuse. I think they're ripping Steve off. Steve also did a good job He included 2 edge players besides Uzama out of Kansas State. He included DJ Johnson out of Oregon. He also included 2 interior defensive linemen, Moro Orjomo out of Texas and DJ Dale out of Alabama. I really like that part of this draft. It's moving up the board. Steve's draft is moving up the board of some of my favorite mock drafts. He also has 2 corners listed besides Garrett Williams. He has the Rams taking Mekhi Blackman out of USC, and he has them taking a guard, Antonio Mafi at UCLA. The only pick that I didn't like that Steve made, the only one I didn't like, and someone liked me, thank you, on YouTube here. Thank you for liking me. The only pick he made that I didn't like was he took Aiden Connell out of Purdue. And I've always been a Purdue guy. You know, call me Mr. Mark Herman. I've always loved Purdue. I loved the way West Lafayette looked. I liked Drew Brees better at Purdue than I did in the NFL. Believe it or not, I was rooting for Kyle Orton in those days. You know, I liked Purdue. Jim Everett played at Purdue. You know, Purdue, man, it was Purdue, but I'm not an Aiden Connell guy. Not. And so I hope he's not the guy the Rams draft. 89 out of 100, Steve. I'm with you. So mock draft you want to send me, I'd love to talk about it. I'd probably only go, you know, to the top 3 picks because we don't want to break it all down into the weeds. But I'd love to talk about the mock draft. I just love to see trends because right now every draft I'm seeing, I just can't see breaking out of that number 36 spot and not going for an edge player. And yet we all know what the Rams do. The Rams always do something weird, right? Like, you know, they've never taken a center inside the top 100, which is probably why they didn't draft Creed Humphrey, right? Anyway, okay, just a reminder, the Rams have 11 picks overall. In the second round, they got number 36. In the third round, they got 2 picks, 69 and 77. And then in the fifth, they've got 3, 167, 171, 177. They got 3 in the sixth, 182, 189, 191. And then in the seventh, they've got 223 and 251. All right, we want to get that stuff out there. Also, getting ready to wrap up here. Where are we at? Let's see here. My phone's going off. Oh, yeah. Not to get ahead of ourselves, I posted this on over the weekend, is in the 2024 draft, the Rams have every pick in each round, right? First round all the way through the 7th, but they have 2 picks in the 6th round. And so they have 8 overall. And with the loss of Matt Gay, Gaines, Scott, and likely Rapp and Robinson, the Rams will get the max compensatory picks. They'll get 4 picks if they don't sign a free agent during this window, which it doesn't look like it. So they'll have 12 total picks banked for 2024, along with massive salary cap space for everything they've done this season by waiving all their players, the key players, making their deals on this side of June 1st. They're putting all that salary, that dead cap money on 2023 and opening up some space for 2024. So along with 12 draft picks. So next year's the year you're likely to see the Rams make a splash in the free. You know, you're going to see maybe with the capital they have, they might make a deal and move up in the draft. So it'll be fun to see. Hard part again is to see. Hard part to see is my phone's blowing up. I must have upset somebody. Did I upset somebody? Hard part is to see 2023 play out and how much they want to expose Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, and even Stafford in a season not geared to making a run. And that's a viable thing there. That is an absolute viable thing as we come down the stretch.
It was a stone groove, my man.
Thank you. It was a stone groove being with you guys today. And thank you so much for everyone that's clicked on, everyone that's supported, everyone that's liked us so far. Love doing RamView. Thank you to our sponsors, Temple City Auto and Kistler Law. Thank you so much for your support and for allowing us to do this. And if you're interested, let us know. We'd love to bring you on board as a sponsor. You can catch us again on Wednesday, and this will be shared on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter as we go forward. Like us, follow us, subscribe, leave comments as we build our footprint. All right, folks, take care. God bless. We will talk to you on Wednesday.